these 3 animals. I actually let them back here last night, so I've decided I'm gonna put more animals back here. And once they're okay, so I got a new plan set up. Okay, because the situation right now is that here in about 3 weeks. Well, it's about 2.5 weeks now. In about 2.5 weeks, I'll have animals that are ready for market. And when I take these animals to market, they will hit the scale at over 650. One of them's already at about is already at about 6.25. One of them is already at about 700, and then one of them's at about maybe about 600. And so here in about 3 weeks, they will hit the scale at over 650. And one of them's got a little bit of an ear on them, but one's pretty much just a flat-out commodity animal. And even if you got a little bit of ear on them, it don't really matter. I mean, maybe I get a 10-cent deduction per pound, and it don't really matter. His conditioning is very good. It's a very, very, very hefty animal, and so they're gonna hit the scale at over 650. And so the big problem right now is that I was taking a look at it this morning, and I was thinking about what am I gonna do. And so this is what I came up with, because if I go and I sell these 3 animals, if I sell these when I sell these 3 animals here in about 2.5 weeks, I'll effectively make enough money to buy 6 or 7, right? And I'm also sitting on cash right now that I've made in excess of this month. And so I'll sell 3 and I'll buy 6 or 7. But the big problem right now is that the animals that are getting preconditioned, but actually right now things are kind of going good because the weather's really nice. So I got really good weather out here, and it's growing me a lot of grass, and the grass is in a good stage of development, right? I mean, the grass the grass is at a good stage of development. It's able to give the animals. I'm actually preconditioning calves on grass right now. And so the big idea right now is the big idea right now is that because when I bring in these new animals, then I'm gonna have to put them in the preconditioning pen. And if I put them in the preconditioning pen, then the animals that are in the preconditioning area right now, they are effectively going to get out of the preconditioning area. And I don't want to be in a situation where I'm preconditioning animals for 3 weeks. All right, even when I give them a double vaccination and everything, I don't want to preconditioning animals for 3 weeks. I really want to be I actually want to be preconditioning animals for 2 months. I really thought about it in terms of an ideal situation, and I was like, in terms of an ideal situation, in terms of a bigger, broader idea, what kind of a preconditioning program would I like? I would actually like to precondition my animals for 2 months, for 60 days, and that's what I would that's what I'm gonna do. And so how am I gonna do that, right? And this animal can't be hitting the other animal, but so how am I gonna do that? So how am I gonna do that? And the big idea is effectively I'm gonna use this big area as a preconditioning area as well, and I'm gonna take all of the bigger animals over to the lease property to go chew on grass. Because okay, here's the thing, when I got a lot of grass on that lease property, and I actually took a look at the grass, and the grass is actually propagating itself across the field, right? It's propagating itself across the field. I have a lot of planting density. The number of plants that I have per square foot over on that lease property is tremendous. The amount of, and yesterday I was actually over there and I took a look at the animals, and when I took a look at the animals, they actually pooped, and I got to see what their manure looked like. And their manure is good. It's not clumping up or anything. It's not they got good manure. Their manure score was actually just under a 3, from a 1 to a 5, and with one being like acidosis, it was just under a 3. So the energy and the protein concentration of the grass is very good. I'm not worried about they're getting their energy or their the dry matter intake. I'm not worried about that stuff right now. The animals are definitely going to be gaining weight, a lot of weight. All right, and the thing about these animals is that once they hit about 500, once they hit about 550, their rumen is actually substantially larger when they hit about 550, especially if they've been preconditioned properly. Their ruminal system will be developed very well. and so they can eat a larger amount of food. And so you know, if they're able to eat a larger amount of food, even if the food has less energy or less protein in it, they can still put on the proper weight. And so I've determined that I'm going to use this, you know, that was the original idea, right? That was the original idea. I'm going to use this area as a large preconditioning pen, and then I'm going to get into the backgrounding business. Once the animals get to about 500 pounds, I'm just going to take them over to the lease property. And I was actually thinking about this whole idea this morning, because I'm like, you know, what am I going to, you know, what would I like to do? Because I really don't want to be sitting on cash, okay? I really don't want to be sitting on more cash. There's no reason for me to do it. You know, and my, you know, this business, and you know, another way to look at it is that if I don't reinvest my money, if I legitimately just run this business the way that it is right now, and I don't grow it at all, but I also don't shrink it, you know, maybe I make a net profit excess of, you know, well, I mean, but then it's also difficult to determine, because it's like, if we're really going to talk about how much cash do I generate, I mean, we would also have to think about me liquidating all of my investments at the end of the year, right? But in terms of, you know, in terms of like, if I just legitimately just ran my business as is, just, you know, held on to the same number of animals and ran the exact same business plan for effectively, you know, infinity and beyond, maybe, you know, whatever, it's, you know, $5,000 to $7,000 a month. But in reality, you know, I'm not looking to make myself an extra, you know, what am I going to do with that? I mean, it's not going to do anything, right? I mean, I'm already, you know, it's whatever, right? And within about 5 months, I'm actually going to double that. And when I double that, I'm going to really look into buying myself a new piece of property. And I already talked about, you know, what am I looking to do over the next 6 months, right? Well, you know, what am I looking to do? You know, I'm, you know, within about 5 months, I'm actually going to go liquid several hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you know, I may even be liquid, you know, about $500,000, you know, over the last 3 years. In terms of me just running this business, over the last 3 years, and you know, what have I accomplished? You know, I've actually managed to maybe I got about $500,000 put away from this business, maybe about you know, about 350 grand. You know, maybe you know, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to go and ask the banker, right? You know, because you know, I'm gonna have to go and ask the banker in terms of straight cash flow, how much cash flow am I generating? And you know, well, in all reality, my cash flow is probably gonna double over the next 5 months. In terms of how much liquid am I sitting on, and I'm gonna have to go and ask the banker about that. But over the last 3 years, you know, maybe it's about 350 grand, maybe it's about $500,000. You know, I'm gonna have to ask the banker. They're gonna give me a line of credit for whatever I have, and then I'll know exactly how much I have. But I would estimate that I've put away about $350,000, $500,000 over the last 3 years, something like that. You know, and I'm actually gonna be doubling my cash flow too. So I'm going to be doubling my cash flow. That's the big idea, double my cash flow over the next 5 months. How am I going to do that? By increasing the size of my herd, right? And so now I take a look at the whole situation, and you know, when these animals hit about 500, because here in about 2.5 weeks, I'll have to liquidate animals. And when I liquidate animals, you know, I'll make enough money to buy, you know, at least 2 for every 1 that I sell. And so, you know, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm preconditioning animals for 3 weeks, right? I don't want to, even when I give them a double dose of vaccinations, and you know, I don't want to be preconditioning animals for in all honesty, I want to be preconditioning animals for 2 months. And so I've actually decided that all the animals that are 500 pounds and over are going to be going over to the lease property. I'm gonna take them over to the lease property, and the cool thing about the lease property is that there are 3 cell barns within a half an hour of that lease property. I got 3 cell barns within half an hour, and so I'm gonna go and take a look at the 3 different cell barns, and I'm gonna see which one do I like the best. And you know, those 3 cell barns, I can just take my animals to the one that I like the most. All right, the one that I like the most is the one that I can take my animals to, and they're within half an hour of the property, so that's very good. And you know, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take these animals over to the lease property. A majority of these animals, if they're over 500 pounds, they're gonna be going over to the lease property. I'm gonna use this area as a big preconditioning pen. You know, I'm gonna be preconditioning animals for 2 months, and oh yeah, and right now I'm only feeding about 8 buckets a day. So I'm feeding about 7 to 8 buckets of grain a day. And if I'm feeding 7 to 8 buckets of grain a day, that means one load, one load of grain at 7 tonnages will last me about 2 months. So for me to, and the whole thing about grain, I give the animals whatever they want to eat. If they eat more grain, I gave them grain and they're not even coming up to eat it, right? But if they want to eat it, they can come up and eat it. All right, I leave it out for them, and they can eat it if they want. But that's my whole thing about grain, is I just let them eat it. And and if you actually take a look at these animals, you can tell that they have grass belly. I mean, look at this animal. Very, very, very hefty looking, right? I mean, he's got a big old gut on him. But that's what happens when these animals eat grass. They swell up. They swell up real big. And, they swell up real big. You can actually take a look at him. I mean, he has just got a big old gut on him. And, you can take a look at his rear end. He's got a lot of green poop on him. And these animals, when they eat grass, they swell up real big. And so, these animals, they all got grass belly on them. And, maybe and I'm only feeding about 7 to 8 buckets a day. And if I feed 7 to 8 buckets a day, that means I'm feeding a 1 7-tonnage load every 2 months. And also, in reality, with the business plan, I'm actually going to be taking all animals over 500 pounds over to the lease property. So that's going to drop the average weight of the herd even more, and they'll even eat less grain after that. And I'm going to use this area as a big preconditioning pen. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna sit on more cash. There's no reason for me to sit on more cash. And I told myself, if I because here's the thing, with the money that I'm making, I talk about this, what am I doing with the money? My big idea with the money is to grow my business, right? I'm looking to grow my business. I make a large amount of money. I would say I would reasonably anticipate that if I was going to put a number on it, and it's not, because it's like, when I ask the question, how much money did I make in the cattle business this month? It's very easy, right? You just add up the 2 checks that I brought home, right? I mean, I made about $14,000. And also, I didn't even sell all my animals, right? I mean, I still have all of these animals. They're still going up in value, and so realistically, I mean, we're talking about me, I would say I would reasonably anticipate that I make about somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 a month just on this cattle business. This cattle business makes me about $20,000-$25,000 a month. And what am I doing with the money? Right? I mean, that's a very easy question, right? I mean, it's very simple. I'm not gambling. I'm not going and doing drugs. I'm not going and buying myself a Lamborghini. What am I doing with the money, right? I'm reinvesting it to grow my business. It's very simple. It's not some complicated question, right? And so, next, here in about 2.5 weeks, I'll be liquidating 3 animals. And when I liquidate those 3 animals, I'll make enough money to buy 6 or 7. And I'm sitting on a couple $1,000s right now. And so, and I actually went through this whole thing with myself this morning. I was like, if I would, and I always tell myself this. I tell myself, if I want to buy anything, I can buy anything. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I really want to buy something, I should just go and buy it. And then I sit there and I think about it, and I'm like, I don't really want to buy anything. I told myself, I can give myself a couple $1,000s a month to just go and buy whatever I want. And even then, I don't really want to buy anything. I really thought about it, and I'm like, what would I buy? What would I buy? I mean, I don't even really want a Lamborghini, right? I mean, I don't even want a Lamborghini. I don't want a Ferrari. I don't want any jewelry, right? I mean, I don't want any jewelry. I don't want any. I don't want a nice. I don't want a Lamborghini. I mean, so I actually sat there and I thought about it this morning. And so I was like, but I told myself, if I legitimately want to buy something, then I can go and buy it. I kind of want to buy myself an AK-47. But but I don't really want an AK-47, but I kind of want one. And I would rather have a 308. And I have plenty of 308s. I'm not buying another 308. I legitimately have like 3 or 4 or 5 308s. And so, and I have like 4 or 5 223 5.56s. And and I have like a 4 or 5 9mm, and I have a 10mm, and I'm not, I don't really like the I feel like what's gonna happen when I buy an if I buy an AK-47, I feel like what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna shoot it, and then it's just gonna sit there for no reason. Like, it'll just be like, oh well, it's kind of cool, I have an AK. I actually got rid of my old AK. You know, I didn't really even like shooting the thing. It's just kind of wonky. I mean, you know, the triggers on them kind of suck. The thing is extremely heavy. I mean, you know, in all, you know, it's a piston driven system, and it's extremely heavy, and it's inherently kind of inaccurate. I mean, the AR-15 is a substantially better platform for firing ammunition. All right, the AR-10 is substantially better than an AK-47. And so I was like, you know, I don't really want an AK. That, you know, but the thing is the reason that I want an AK is because I have like 1,200 rounds of 7.62 39 ammo that, you know, I had bought, and you know, I have about 1,500 rounds of 5.56, and I have about 1,000 rounds of 308. I have about 700 rounds of 308, and you know, and I also have about 1,200 rounds of 7.62 39. And I was like, you know, I just want to buy an AK so I can shoot my 7.62 ammo. But then it's like, you know, I remember when I had my AK, I didn't really like the thing. You know, the triggers on them suck. They're extremely heavy. I mean, in terms of ballistic, you know, efficiency, I mean, the 308 is a significantly better round, and the AR-10 is significantly more accurate. All right, and so I was like, you know, I remember the last time I had an AK, I didn't really even want the thing. You know, I didn't really, you know, and then that's also why I have 1,200 rounds of 7.62 left over. I mean, 1,200 rounds, something like that, of 7.62 39 left over. And so I was like, you know, I don't, you know, but I told I've actually been telling, you know, I told myself this morning, you know, if I want to buy anything, I can buy it. But, you know, but what am I going to buy? I mean, you know, what am I going to buy? I mean, you know, I don't want a Lamborghini. Right? I don't want a Ferrari. You know, I kind of thought about, I don't want jewelry. Right? I mean, you know, I kind of thought about maybe buying myself an AK, but I don't really even want myself I don't even really want an AK. And so, you know, but, you know, I told myself, you know, because here's the thing, is that, like, right now, I would say that, you know, I'm probably net excess about $7,000 a month. This business is producing me about $7,000 a month, and you know, if you don't understand money, we can take a look at that in terms of cattle. And the efficiency of my business is actually going up. I'm actually becoming more efficient as time goes forward, and you know, if you don't understand money, we can take a look at it in terms of cattle. In terms of cattle, the way that looks is I sell one and I buy two, right? I take the money that I make from selling one to buy two. And even when I do that, I'm not liquidating all of my animals, right? I'm only liquidating a certain portion of my animals. I still have animals left over. And so, you know, realistically, I mean, you know, in terms of hard cash, how much cash do I bring home? You know, maybe about 14,000 a month. But in terms of all honesty, in terms of reality, I mean, we got to take a look at the asset portfolio too, right? I mean, I'm effectively trading commodities. I mean, realistically, I make, you know, somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 a month, and I'm actually going to double that number over the next 5 months. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to sell one and buy two. All right, that, you know, that's another way to look at it. And when I sell animals, I'm not selling my entire herd. Right, I'm selling portions of my herd at a time and then reinvesting the capital, right? And so, you know, and if I legitimately felt like, oh well, I would like to access the money that my herd is accumulating as well, and I take a look at my animals and I say, well, my animals are not, you know, I don't really want to take them to market. I don't want to liquidate the asset. Well, then what can I do? I can just go and get myself a line of credit for the amount that I appraise the animals for, and then utilize the line of credit, right? It's the exact same thing. I can just buy more animals. And so, you know, but I've already said I'm not using credit. I'm not using any debt. I'm not going to use any debt for I'm not going to use any debt for, you know, maybe, I don't know, you know, maybe for another 5 months. I won't use any debt, and then well, actually about 4 or 5 months, because in about 4 or 5 months I will effectively be completely debt free on my cattle. I will have zero leverage on my cattle, And then, you know, I will have my balance sheet is going to look pristine in about 5 months. It's going to look incredibly good. I mean, I will be liquid about $500,000, 350 grand. I'll be liquid about $350,000-$500,000. I will have no debt on my cattle, and I will be net positive cash flow about $15,000 a month. And, you know, that's what my balance sheet is going to look like in about 5 months. That's the big idea. My balance sheet is going to look very good. And when that happens, I'm going to go and present my deal, right? You know, when that happens, I'm going to go and present my deal. What am I looking to do with the money? Right? Buy myself a very big piece of land. Right? Very simple. It's not complicated. It's the exact same business plan, you know. And, you know, it's the exact same business plan, right? And so, you know, but I told myself, you know, and I actually told myself this morning, you know, if I want to go and spend a couple $1,000s a month, if you know, I can do, you know, okay, because here's the thing, my income is actually going up by about 15 to 20% every single month, and it's compounding. And I talked about this in terms of a broader reality. If you were watching me thinking that I made a lot of money, as of right now, you're looking at me and you're going, this guy makes a lot of money. It's about to get drastically worse. I'm about to make substantially more money. I'm actually making substantially more money every single day that goes by. I'm actually making substantially more money. I'm actually probably increasing the amount of money that I make by about 15 to 20% compounding every single month. Like, you know, and this is, I'm telling you, you know, you know, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me. All right. You know, I'm going to make the money. It doesn't matter. You know, I'm not going to go and be poor. Why would I be poor? Right. You know, I'm not going to go and be poor. All right. And if you don't understand money, think about it in terms of cattle. Think about it in terms of the overall efficiency of my business. I have drastically increased the efficiency of my business by utilizing this lease property. The lease property is completely covered in grass, right? I mean, and I'm very good at growing grass. I may be one of the best in the world at it. All right, you know, it just, you know, and when I take a look at it in terms of what it is, I mean, you know, if we take a look at it in terms of a closer look at things, here in about 2.5 weeks, I'll be liquidating 3 animals, and these animals are going to hit the scale at over 650. I will probably make enough money to buy more than 2 animals for every one that I sell. All right, you know, and I'm already sitting on a couple $1,000s cash as well. All right, you know, the money, you know, I have money left over from my, you know, I have money left over from the beginning of the month. You know, if I reinvest my earnings and I don't take any leverage, you know, my business still grows pretty substantially. You know, it might actually, I might, you know, and because here's the thing is that you know, as time progresses, I am becoming more efficient, right? I'm actually getting better as time progresses. Like, I'm actually doing better for myself as time moves forward, right? As time progresses, I'm actually doing better for myself. I may actually be more than doubling my income every 365 days at this point. I may be. All right, and you know, the thing about this whole situation, you know, if you thought that I made a lot of money so far, like you've been, oh my God, this guy makes a lot. It's about to get a lot worse. I'm about to make substantially more money. Substantially more. It's about to go drastic. And it's actually going drastic as of right this moment. I already told you about 2 months ago, my income has effectively passed my income has effectively hit the point of inflection. About a month ago, I actually told you this, right? And every month that goes by, my income is going to go up drastically higher. Not drastically higher, but here's the thing. It's like, you know, let's say that I'm compounding 20% every single month. Let's say I'm compounding 15% every single month. So right now I make whatever, $7,000 excess. So next month, that $7,000 is effectively going to be about whatever, $8,000. And then the next month, it's going to be $9,000. And then the next month, or $9,500 or $9,250 or whatever, it's going to compound upwards. I would actually say that I have a net excess of about $12,000 a month. So right now my income is about my net excess is about $7,000 a month, and I'm just reinvesting that into my business. I'm reinvesting that into my business, right? And in about 5 months, my net excess will be somewhere between 10 and 15,000. And by the end of the year, I'm actually looking into buying my own piece of land, and then at that point I'm gonna take leverage for the land, and it's gonna go ballistic. All right, I may actually end the year making closer to 80,000 dollars a month than 25. Right now my income is actually my income is in terms of how much money do I bring home, how much do I pay myself. I pay myself just under about 20,000. That's what I pay myself, right? I pay myself about $20,000, right? And why do I do that? Right? Because that's effectively how much money I've decided that I need. Right? I don't need, that's how much money I've decided that I would like to utilize. So I I effectively write myself a check for about $20,000 a month. If I legitimately felt like paying myself more, I could pay myself more. It's not a big deal. But what am I going to do with that? Am I just going to sit there and look at the money? There's no reason to do that, right? And so what do I do with the 20 grand? I pay for all of my bills. I pay for everything that I need, and then I grow my business. That's what I do with the money. I don't go and go buy myself a Lamborghini and gamble. Right? I don't go start doing drugs. Right? What do I do with the money? I pay for all of my bills, and then I pay for everything that I need, and then I grow my business. That's what I do with the money. All right, very simple. Money's not complicated. Money's not complicated. It's not difficult. All right, you should not be having difficulty understanding money. Money is very simple. It's just like stating a fact. It's like saying 1 + 1 is 2. All right, money is very simple. That's what I do with the money, and that's about how much I pay myself. I paid myself about $19,000 this month, right? I paid myself, in terms of my cattle business. My cattle business produced about 14,000. Right? I paid myself about 17, 18,000, whatever it may be. It wasn't 19,000. I paid myself about 17, 18,000. My cattle business made about 13, 14,000. Right? Very simple. It's not complicated. Oh, I brought home 2 checks. The checks had this number on it. I add those up, and then I add my $4,000 W-2. How much is that number? Very simple, right? That's all it is. Money is very simple. And what did I do with the money? Well, I grew my business a little bit, and I'm actually sitting on a couple $1,000s right now. Here in about 2.5 weeks, I'll have to liquidate more animals. All right, and and my business is actually in the most reasonable way for me to put it is that my business is actually growing substantially. I've actually passed what I call the point of inflection. If you thought I was making a lot of money right now, you're in for a trip. I'm about to make, I am actually making a boatload of money as time progresses. I'm actually making substantially more. I'm actually just flat out growing my business. All right, legitimately. And I'm not using any debt. Honest to God. In my right hand to heaven, I'm not buying anything on debt right now, anything at all. And the reason that I'm doing that is so that within 5 months, I can effectively clear out all of my cattle debt. I will still have cattle, and then I can effectively go to the bank and show them my balance sheet, right? I'm liquid about $350,000, $500,000. And I don't know why I keep saying, why I keep saying that I have $30,000 liquid. That's not true. I mean, but here's the thing. In terms of hard cash, in terms of legitimate, just straight money, like if I legitimately just needed to go and use the money tomorrow, then we're talking about 30 grand. But I mean, in terms of a reality, it's like I have my investments, right? I have my investments. I have my land. I have my business. I have my cattle. And I'm not going to know what the liquid evaluation of these various assets are until I go and talk to the bank about it. Will you give me a loan against my cattle, or will you give me a loan against my business? Will you give me a loan, and, will you appraise my business and give me a loan against it? I don't know what the liquid evaluation of all my assets are. I don't. I won't know until I go to the bank. But I've effectively been generating large amounts of equity too, right? And so, and it's like, if the bank will give me a large line of credit against my business, I have an LLC, and and the whole thing about this is that, and I've talked about this, if you start an LLC with the intentions of just generating as much as much credit as you can, and then you bankrupt the thing and then default on all your payments, I mean, that's not good. All right, you should not be doing that. There are people that do that. That's not good. All right, you don't want to be in that situation. Selling your soul to the devil, it never works. It sounds like a good idea at the beginning, but then you just end up getting wrecked. It doesn't work. Am I going to do that? No, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? If the bank, or when the banks give me a business line of credit, I can use that money too, right? I can use that money to buy more cattle. And if I'm leveraging against whatever half of my herd, then I don't really care. All right, because at the end of the day, even if everything went sideways, even if everything went, whatever, I could still pay the bank back. If I'm only leveraged 50%, I'm not even leveraged 1-for-1, I'm leveraged 0.5 to 1, then it won't matter. And so, and I would actually anticipate that my income, okay, so, because here's a very realistic way to look at it. My income right now is somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a month, right? Let's just say, but I don't want to make the numbers too complicated. So let's just say 20,000 to make the numbers easy. And so at 20,000, we're effectively talking about $240,000 a year. I make about $240,000 a year, but my income is actually going up, and it's going up very quickly. I would actually anticipate that my income ends at closer to $70,000, $80,000 a month than $20,000 a month. I would actually anticipate that within the next 9 months, my income actually goes to about $70,000, $80,000 a month. Even right now, my income is going up. It's going up, and it's going up drastically. And as time progresses, I'm actually becoming more efficient. When I take a look at the information and what I'm accomplishing, I'm actually becoming more efficient. I didn't have some 200% upwards move in the commodity markets, and I'm still generating myself a large amount of money. Right, I kind of, but I mean, that's but the first year, that I was doing this, there was by the second year, there was a 200% move up in the commodity markets. And that, that made me a large amount of money. And then I lost the money, I didn't lose all of it, but I lost about half of it, so it went from being my best year to being my worst year. But right now, everything's just kind of going okay. Everything's just kind of going all right. And I am still generating myself a large amount of money. There isn't some 200% move upwards in the commodity markets, in the cattle markets, and I'm still generating myself a large amount of money. And so, I'm doing real good for myself. I'm doing real well for myself. And I told myself, I could go and buy something. If I legitimately want to buy something, I can buy it. I mean, even if it's $5,000 a month, it doesn't matter. All right, but then again, it's like, I thought about it. It's like, I don't want a Lamborghini. Right? I don't want a Lamborghini. I don't want a Ferrari. I don't want jewelry. Right? I don't really even want another gun. I mean, I have plenty of guns already, and so I don't know what I'm gonna buy. I don't know what I'm gonna buy. I told myself, if I want to buy anything, I can buy whatever I want. But but that's the thing. It's like, I don't even really want jewelry. I don't want a Lamborghini. I really sat there and I thought about it. I legitimately, I don't want a Lamborghini. I don't know how else to put it. I don't want a Ferrari. I don't want a Lamborghini. I don't really even want jewelry. So I was like, if I want to buy something, I can buy it. And even if it was $5,000 a month, it wouldn't matter. And so I told myself, whatever it is that I want to buy, just buy it. But I don't really want to buy anything. But yeah, I mean, within about 5 months, I will have 0 debt on my cattle. My balance sheet will be pristine. I will be liquid about several hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, $350,000, $500,000 I will have liquid. And, well, I mean, but and I talk about money in terms of money, like when it comes to buying something, how do you buy it, or how do I buy it? There are different ways that I buy different things. Like if I'm going to buy a piece of land, right, I take a mortgage, right? I go to the bank and talk to the banker about it. Whatever, right? I don't, there are different ways to buy different things, right? And so, am I gonna pay flat cash for everything? No, I'm not gonna do that. Why would I do that? There's no reason to do that. All right, why would I do that? There's no reason to do that. I mean, it's not a very intelligent thing to do, right? I mean, so I'm gonna figure it out. But but that's another way. That's just a very realistic way to look at it in terms of what I got going on. With the money, I'm actually growing my business. And over the last 3 years, I've actually probably put away about $350,000 to $500,000. But I don't know exactly how much I put away. I don't. I've just been holding the money as equity. I don't know how much money I put away. I won't know until I go to the bank. All right, and then I ask the banker, how much money have I put away? I won't know. But I would anticipate that it's somewhere between 350 and 500,000 liquid. I probably saved about 350 grand over the last 3 years. Somewhere around that range, I probably did. And if it's low, maybe 250. But I won't know how much money I've put away until I talk to the banker about it. And but that's effectively the big idea. I'm going to use the equity on this property. I'm going to collateralize this property for a line of credit. I'm going to leave cattle on this field to produce cash flow. I'm going to take that cash flow and pay for the leverage that the bank has given me by holding this property as collateral, right? I go to the bank and I tell them I have this property. I've been putting money into the property. I don't know exactly how much money I've been putting into it, but I've been putting money into the property, and give me a line of credit against the money that I've put away. They will give me a line of credit, and they will tell me, for this line of credit, you will have to pay this much money every month. I will take a look at that number. I will add it to my mortgage, and then I will cash flow that amount by running cattle on this field, and then I will utilize the line of credit as a part of my next deal, as a down payment for my next deal. All right, that's how I'm going to do it. Go to the bank, tell them I have a piece of land, tell them I want a line of credit against it. They will evaluate it. They will give me a line of credit. They will tell me how much that line of credit is going to cost me every month. I will add that number to the mortgage, and then I will cash flow the property by putting cattle on it, and then use the cash flow to float the debt, to cover the debt, to pay for the debt. And when I do that, it's effectively, I just get access to the money, right? And then the property makes the money, so I don't worry about it. And then I can use that money as a down payment for my next big deal. I'm not looking to, I'm really looking to, do a real big one. I want to do a real big one. And, right now, my business is probably going to double over the next 5 months. I would anticipate that my business doubles over the next 5 months, and I'm not going to be using any debt. As of right now, if you thought that I made a lot of money, right now, it's about to get worse. I'm about to make substantially more. I make about 240, 250, 200 to 250 right now, as of right this moment. If I was going to tell you what my income is right this moment, I make about 250 a year, 200 to 250. But by the end of the year, I would actually anticipate that my income goes closer to $1 million a year, cash. All right, that's another way to look at it. All right, and I don't know what, I would say that right now my net worth is somewhere between 3 and 5 million, and my net worth may actually go over 20 million in the next 9 months. Not even 10, 20, 15, something like that. 15 million, something like that. All right, and how am I going to do that? Right, by running my business. All right, I started this business, right? I talk about this in terms of a broader idea. If you can start a business and have that business produce money, that's very valuable. That's very valuable. If you're in a situation where you can start a business, produce money, and grow it substantially, that becomes even more valuable, drastically more valuable. That's, you know, that's how businesses work. You know, it's not my opinion. This is how business works. It is what it is. You know, the old saying, it is what it is. I'm giving you good information. When you have a business that produces a profit, when you have a business that produces a positive return, that business is valuable. It has a monetary number. You could have created that business out of nothing like I did. I started this business in my backyard. This cattle farm did not exist until I got here. All right, and so I started this business by myself. This business produces a substantial positive return. Then that makes this business very valuable. I'm actually going to grow this business. I'm actually going to take my revenue vertical. I'm actually going to grow this business. Then that makes the business even more valuable. This business has been growing substantially every single month. For like 18 out of 24 months, this business has grown. Well, then that makes the business even more valuable. All right, that's how business works. When you have a business that produces money, that business is valuable. If that business is doing better, you know, over a period of time, if that business is continuing to do better, that makes the business even more valuable. All right, that's how business works. It is what it is. It's not an opinion. Nobody cares about an opinion. All right, opinions aren't going to get you anything. All right, it is what it is. Like when I bring home a check, when I bring home whatever, 2 checks, that check is not an opinion, right? You just add the numbers up and that's how much money I make. It's not some debatable thing. All right, oh, this check has $6,800 on it. Oh, this check has $6,900 on it. Then you just add the 2 numbers up. That's it. That's all that money is. Oh, he brought home another check and this check has $5,400 on it. Then you add the $3 up. Then you add the 3 checks up, and that's how much money I make. Whatever, you know, and however many checks it is, whatever, it doesn't matter. Money is not complicated. All right, I pay myself about $15,000 to $20,000 a month. What do I do with that money? I pay for all of my bills and I grow my business. My business is probably growing at about 15 to 20% a month right now. Compounding. That's what I do with the money. All right, if you don't understand money, think about it in terms of cattle. All right, it's very simple. All right, it's not complicated, okay? It's not complicated. There's no reason to not understand this. I mean, it's very, very, very simple. And I told myself I can do whatever I want. You know, I can buy whatever I want. You know, but then I thought about it and I was like, I don't really even want a Lamborghini. You know, I don't even want a Ferrari. I don't even want jewelry. And so what am I gonna buy? I mean, I told myself I can buy whatever I want. But I don't know. I said, what would I buy? I mean, what would I buy? I guess that's the $1 million question right now. What do I want to buy? Oh, actually, you know what? I just remember. I'll buy myself a truck. You know, I would do that, but but even if I buy myself a truck, I mean, it's like I buy myself a truck and then what, right? It's gonna, I could buy a truck in, I could buy a new truck in 3 months. If I legitimately had $0 right now and I just saved money for the next 3 months, I could buy myself a new truck cash. So then what, right? I mean, then what? I don't really even want a new truck. I mean, I kind of like my truck, so I don't know, I don't know. So what do I want to buy? I don't know. Maybe nothing. I don't know. I don't really even, I don't want a Lamborghini. I don't want jewelry. I'll figure it out. But that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.